For decades, MotoGP has stood at the pinnacle of motorcycle racing, where the world's fastest riders push cutting-edge machines to the absolute limit. But in 2027, the championship is preparing for one of the biggest transformations in its history. This isn't just a small rule update. MotoGP is introducing a full reset that will reshape engines, aerodynamics, fuel, tires, and even how teams compete. The goal is clear: make racing safer, more sustainable, and more competitive. With smaller engines, reduced aerodynamics, sustainable fuel, and a new tire supplier, nearly every part of the MotoGP machine will change, and the teams that adapt fastest could gain a major advantage in this new era. A new engine era. The most attention-grabbing change in the 2027 regulations is the shift in engine capacity. For more than a decade, MotoGP bikes have used 1,000cc engines, delivering extreme power and breathtaking top speeds. But beginning in 2027, that figure will drop to 850cc. At first glance, this may seem like a step backward, but the reasoning behind it is far more strategic. Smaller engines naturally produce slightly lower top speeds, which improves safety. However, the decision isn't just about slowing the bikes down. Engineers are being challenged to focus on efficiency, power delivery, and endurance rather than raw speed alone. The change could also make MotoGP machinery more technologically relevant to real-world motorcycles, something manufacturers have increasingly prioritized. To maintain reliability, strict limits will also apply to engine usage throughout the season. Riders will be allowed 6 engines per season for a 20-race calendar. If the championship expands to 21 or 22 races, teams will be permitted a 7th engine. Manufacturers with lower performance rankings, known as concession rank D teams, will receive 2 additional engines per rider to help them stay competitive. One company has already moved quickly into the future. KTM revealed that it successfully fired up its first working 850cc MotoGP engine in September 2025, demonstrating how seriously manufacturers are approaching the upcoming transition. According to KTM Motorsport director Pit Beirer, the engine represents the culmination of everything the brand has learned since joining MotoGP. Early indications suggest the new power units will sound and behave differently, marking the beginning of a completely new technical chapter in the sport. Aerodynamics. If one area of MotoGP engineering has exploded in complexity over the past decade, it's aerodynamics. Modern MotoGP bikes are covered with winglets, fins, ducts, and aerodynamic surfaces designed to generate downforce and increase stability during acceleration and braking. These innovations have pushed performance forward, but they've also introduced new problems. Excessive aerodynamic turbulence, often called dirty air, can make it difficult for riders to follow closely behind competitors, sometimes reducing overtaking opportunities. To address this, the 2027 regulations introduce a significant reduction in aerodynamic influence. Several important changes are being implemented. The width of the front fairing will shrink from 600mm to 550mm, reducing the aerodynamic surface area. The nose of the bike will move back by 50mm, altering airflow around the machine. The maximum height of rear aerodynamic devices will drop from 1250mm to 1150mm. Together, these adjustments significantly limit how much downforce teams can generate. The intention is clear: reduce aerodynamic dependence and place more emphasis on rider skill. Rear aerodynamic components will also face tighter restrictions. Manufacturers will only be allowed 1 aerodynamic update per season for parts located behind the rider, forcing teams to be more strategic with development rather than constantly introducing upgrades. Another controversial feature: leg wings, small appendages near the rider's legs, may also be banned, though final decisions are still under discussion by the Grand Prix Commission. These aerodynamic reductions could dramatically change racing dynamics. With less disturbed air trailing behind bikes, riders may find it easier to stay close through corners and attack on the straights. Fans could see more late-braking maneuvers, more aggressive overtakes, and more intense battles throughout the field. Sustainable fuel. MotoGP is also taking a major environmental step forward. Starting in 2027, all MotoGP machines will run on 100% non-fossil origin fuel. This marks a huge leap from the current requirement introduced in 2024, which mandated that fuel contain at least 40% sustainable components. The new regulation means every drop of fuel used in the Premier class must come from renewable or non-fossil sources. Importantly, MotoGP intends to achieve this transition without sacrificing performance. Alongside the new fuel rule, fuel tank capacity will also decrease. For full Grand Prix races, the maximum fuel allowance will drop from 22 liters to 20 liters. Sprint races will be limited to 11 liters. These changes will force teams to develop engines that balance performance with efficiency. Race strategies could also become more complex as teams carefully manage fuel consumption over the course of a race. MotoGP hopes this move will position the championship as a leader in sustainable motorsport technology, gearbox limits, and technical strategy. Another significant adjustment for 2027 involves gearboxes. In the current era, teams can frequently tailor gear ratios to suit specific tracks. But under the new regulations, flexibility will be reduced. Manufacturers will be limited to 16 gearbox ratio pairs per season, along with 4 primary drive ratios. This restriction means teams must make strategic decisions about which gear configurations to use throughout the year. Instead of constantly optimizing gearing for each circuit, engineers will have to design more versatile setups. The result could introduce an additional layer of unpredictability. Some bikes might excel on fast, flowing circuits, but struggle on tighter tracks with heavy braking zones. That variability could make the championship even more interesting. A data revolution. Perhaps one of the most surprising changes arriving in 2027 involves data sharing. After each session, GPS data from every rider will be made available to every team. This is a major shift for a sport where data has traditionally been closely guarded. By allowing universal access to rider GPS information, MotoGP aims to level the playing field between factory teams and smaller satellite teams. Teams will gain insights into braking points, cornering speeds, racing lines, and acceleration patterns used by competitors. While elite teams will still maintain advantages in engineering and resources, smaller teams may find it easier to close performance gaps with access to more detailed information. For fans, this could also lead to deeper race analysis and more engaging broadcasts as commentators break down rider techniques using shared data. A fresh start for manufacturers. The 2027 rule changes also introduce a reset for MotoGP's concession system. All manufacturers that competed in the 2026 season will begin 2027 in concession rank B, essentially starting on equal footing as they adapt to the new regulations. Midway through the 2027 season, the rankings will be reassessed based on performance. Manufacturers that struggle may receive development advantages such as additional testing or engine allocations. Meanwhile, successful teams could lose certain privileges. This dynamic system is designed to prevent massive performance gaps from forming while still rewarding strong engineering and innovation. Pirelli takes over as tire supplier. One final change will affect every lap of racing: the tires. Beginning in 2027, Pirelli will replace Michelin as MotoGP's official tire supplier. This introduces another variable into an already massive rule overhaul. New tires mean new grip characteristics, different warm-up behavior, and potentially different wear patterns during races. Riders will need time to adapt to the feel of the new rubber, while teams must redesign setups to match the characteristics of the Pirelli compounds. Because tires influence everything from corner speed to braking stability, this change alone could reshape competitive order early in the new era. Mixed reactions from the paddock. As with any major transformation, not everyone in the MotoGP world agrees with the direction of these changes. Former world champion Casey Stoner has publicly questioned whether the new regulations will truly improve racing. His concerns reflect a common sentiment among some fans: MotoGP is already one of the most thrilling forms of motorsport in the world. Why risk changing it? However, the championship's leadership sees things differently. The 2027 regulations are designed not to fix a broken system, but to ensure the sport remains competitive, sustainable, and technologically relevant for decades to come. The beginning of a new MotoGP era. When the lights go out for the first race of the 2027 season, MotoGP will look very different. The bikes will have smaller engines. Their aerodynamic shapes will be simplified. They will run on fully sustainable fuel. They will ride on new tires. And teams will be working with shared performance data for the first time. It's a massive shift, one that will challenge riders, engineers, and teams in ways the sport hasn't seen for years. But if these changes achieve their goal, the payoff could be enormous. Closer racing, more overtakes, greater competition across the grid, and perhaps most importantly, a championship that remains as thrilling and relevant in the future as it has been for generations of fans. MotoGP isn't just updating its rulebook, it's reinventing the sport for the next era of racing. MotoGP is entering a completely new era in 2027, with smaller engines, new technology, and a fresh competitive reset for every team. The only question now is, who will adapt the fastest and dominate this new chapter of racing? If you enjoyed this breakdown of MotoGP's biggest transformation, make sure to like and subscribe.